Every year, China's New Year quietly resets the world economy. But the scale of this celebration is beyond anything you can imagine. We're talking about 9 billion trips in 40 days. That's every person on Earth moving at least once. The fireworks launched in a single night use more gunpowder than was fired during the entire Vietnam War. 500 million people travel distances longer than crossing the United States, all within 2 weeks. And when it's over, $1.6 trillion has moved through the economy, more than the entire GDP of Spain. This isn't just a holiday. It's the moment when a 4,000-year-old tradition proves it controls the modern global economy, and what happens during these few weeks will shape your entire year, whether you know it or not. But to understand how one festival gained the power to stop the world, you need to know where it all began. The Ancient Festival. 4,000 years ago, in the villages of ancient China, people lived in terror of a beast called Nian. This monster would emerge from the mountains every winter, devouring crops, livestock, and anyone unlucky enough to cross its path. The villagers discovered Nian feared 3 things: the color red, loud noises, and fire. So they covered their homes in red paper, lit bamboo to create explosions, and banged drums through the night. The monster never returned. That's how the world's largest celebration was born, from a desperate attempt to survive winter. Chinese New Year became far more than monster scaring. As dynasties rose and fell over thousands of years, the Spring Festival evolved into the cornerstone of Chinese culture. It marked the end of winter and the agricultural year's beginning, when families would settle debts, honor ancestors, and pray for prosperity. Despite invasions, civil wars, and revolutions that shattered empires, this tradition refused to die. Then came the Cultural Revolution in the 1960s. Mao's regime saw traditional festivals as feudal remnants that needed destroying. Chinese New Year celebrations were banned. Families couldn't gather. Traditions that survived 4 millennia became criminal acts. For over a decade, the Spring Festival existed only in whispers and secret gatherings. But when China opened up in the 1980s, the festival exploded back with stunning force. Millions instantly resumed traditions driven underground. The government realized you can't kill a celebration woven into 1 billion people's identity, so they embraced it, making Chinese New Year the longest national holiday, 7 days off for everyone. Today, Chinese New Year is more powerful than any point in its 4,000-year history. The ancient festival that started with frightened villagers banging drums now commands the entire global economy's attention. And what happens during these 15 days is about to move more money than most countries see all year. What actually happens? Imagine coordinating 1.4 billion people to stop working, travel across a country the size of the United States, and sit down for dinner at the exact same moment. That's Chinese New Year. And what happens makes every other celebration look tiny. It centers on one meal. The reunion dinner on New Year's Eve isn't just important, it's sacred. Families scattered across China's massive geography come together under one roof. You could work in a Shenzhen factory 2,000 miles from your Sichuan village, and you're expected home for this dinner. No excuses. Companies shut down. Schools close. The nation pauses because this meal represents everything. Family unity, respect for elders, hope for the year ahead. The food carries meaning. Fish must be served because the Chinese word sounds like surplus. You're eating prosperity. Dumplings shaped like gold ingots represent wealth. Long noodles mean longevity, and cutting them cuts your life short. Spring rolls symbolize gold bars. When 800 million people eat these symbolic foods on the same night, you're witnessing history's largest coordinated meal. Then come red envelopes. Hongbao aren't just cash cards, they're vessels of luck and blessing from elders to children, employers to employees. The money must be crisp new bills. Amounts with 8 are lucky, because 8 sounds like wealth. 4 is forbidden, because it sounds like death. Billions of these envelopes change hands, and now they've gone digital. WeChat and Alipay facilitate transactions, reaching hundreds of billions of yuan in days. On New Year's Eve, 800 million people watch one television program. The CCTV New Year's Gala has run since 1983, and it's as essential as the reunion dinner. This 4-hour show gets 800 million viewers simultaneously. The Super Bowl gets 120 million. The World Cup final hits 700 million globally. Nothing touches 800 million people in one country, watching one channel at one time. Then, the fireworks begin. At midnight, the entire nation erupts in explosions. Not just major cities, every town, village, neighborhood across China. The tradition comes from scaring away the Nian monster with noise and fire. Modern China turned this into humanity's most intense pyrotechnic display. NASA satellite imagery shows air pollution spikes visible from space. The sound measures as a sustained roar lasting hours. This isn't a fireworks show. It's coordinated detonation across 1.4 billion people, blasting away bad luck. The next 15 days overflow with traditions. You can't clean on New Year's Day or sweep away luck. Can't wash hair or wash away wealth. Lion and dragon dances take over streets. Temples overflow with worshippers. Children get new clothes. Wearing old clothes brings bad luck. Adults settle debts because entering the year owing money invites disaster. Red dominates everything. Red lanterns on every building. Red banners with gold calligraphy on doorways. Red decorations in homes, offices, streets. The country transforms into red and gold, reinforcing one message. This celebration is bigger than any individual, any company, any other priority. What makes this remarkable is these traditions haven't changed for centuries. In an era of smartphones and AI, 1.4 billion people follow rituals their ancestors performed 1,000 years ago. China's modernization didn't weaken traditions, it amplified them. Red envelopes went digital, but got stronger. The reunion dinner includes modern dishes, but symbolic foods remain mandatory. Fireworks are regulated in cities, but demand is so intense the government can only restrict, never eliminate. This celebration bent an entire civilization to its will for 4,000 years. And now, all these traditions, all these rituals, all these billion-plus people moving in unison are triggering something the modern world has never seen. Because when 1.4 billion people decide to go home simultaneously, moving them creates history's largest human migration, the largest human migration on Earth. Every year, China attempts something that should be physically impossible. They move 3 billion people across distances that would make most countries collapse. This is Chunyun, the Spring Festival travel season, and nothing else in human history comes close. The Hajj pilgrimage brings together 2 million Muslims. India's Kumbh Mela draws 40 million over weeks. Chunyun involves 3 billion trips in 40 days. You could take every person in the United States and move them coast to coast 9 times, and you still wouldn't match what China does every single year. Here's what's happening. China's economic boom pulled hundreds of millions of people from rural villages to coastal factory cities. These workers make your phones, your clothes, your electronics in places like Shenzhen and Shanghai. They live in dormitories, work long shifts, and see their families maybe twice a year. Chinese New Year is that moment. The reunion dinner isn't optional. Missing it is unthinkable. So 500 million migrant workers prepare to travel thousands of miles home. A factory worker in Shenzhen traveling to Sichuan province covers 1,200 miles, the same as New York to Miami. Now imagine 200 million people making similar journeys simultaneously, and you understand why this becomes a national crisis every year. The trains carry the heaviest load. 350 million train journeys happen during Chunyun. That's more than the entire US population boarding trains in weeks. Tickets sell out in seconds when they go on sale 30 days before travel. The online system crashes under hundreds of millions of people fighting for seats. Those who miss out pay scalpers double or triple the price just to get home. Airlines add 10,000 extra flights, operating at maximum capacity around the clock. Every seat fills. Ticket prices surge to 4 times normal rates. People pay without hesitation because missing that reunion dinner means dishonoring your family and breaking a 4,000-year tradition. Hundreds of millions who can't get trains or afford planes take buses or drive. China's highways become parking lots. The 12-hour journey stretches to 30 hours when traffic crawls. Rest stops overflow. gas stations run dry, and people keep going because turning back isn't an option. The government treats Chunyun like a military operation. Thousands of volunteers manage crowds at stations. Police prevent crushing incidents in the masses. In 2008, winter storms trapped hundreds of thousands at Guangzhou Station for days, creating a crisis that forced complete overhaul of their planning. But here's the nightmare: this isn't one way. Everyone who travels home must return after the holiday. The entire migration reverses, creating a second wave of 3 billion trips as workers flood back to restart factories. The logistics disaster happens twice, with only a week between. The cost is astronomical. Moving the equivalent of the global population multiple times costs hundreds of billions of yuan annually. And that's just transportation. That's before you count what happens when 3 billion trips deliver 500 million people home and they start spending money. The consumption explosion. When 500 million people reunite after months apart, they don't show up empty-handed. Chinese New Year triggers spending so massive, it can make or break entire industries' annual performance. And the numbers don't just break records, they redefine what's economically possible. 1.6 trillion yuan flows through the economy in weeks. That's $230 billion more than Portugal's entire GDP. Black Friday generates 9 billion in one day. Chinese New Year sustains that level every single day for weeks. This is the largest concentrated consumer spending event on the planet. New clothes are mandatory. Tradition says you must wear something new or carry bad luck forward. Over 1 billion people shop for fresh outfits simultaneously. Clothing retailers stock inventory levels that dwarf the rest of the year. Stores stay open 24 hours. The color red dominates because it brings fortune. Red dresses, red shirts, red accessories disappear faster than retailers can restock. The reunion dinner requires specific, expensive ingredients. Premium fish, high-quality meat, specialty items that only appear this season. Grocery stores see sales spike 300%. Wholesale markets operate around the clock. And because this meal sets the tone for the entire year, families splurge on the best they can afford. Gift-giving operates on complex social obligations. Premium baijiu liquor, single bottles costing thousands of dollars, sells by the millions. Gold jewelry demand surges 40%. Thousands of tons of gold sold in weeks. The global gold market watches Chinese New Year because this buying power literally moves international prices. 474 million domestic tourist trips happened in 2024. That's 500 million people vacationing on top of the 500 million traveling home. Tourist spending reached 632 billion yuan, $90 billion in 1 week. Hotels quadruple rates and still fill every room. The Spring Festival movie box office routinely exceeds $1 billion. Digital red envelopes went nuclear. Billions sent through WeChat and Alipay. Not millions, billions. During peak hours on New Year's Eve, people send and grab digital hongbao at 400,000 per second. 1 billion people engaged in the same mobile activity simultaneously, creating the largest real-time digital participation event in history. E-commerce platforms generate tens of billions. Mobile games release special events because players will spend heavily during time off. Every sector operates at absolute maximum capacity, and profits from this one period can determine whether businesses survive the year. This isn't discretionary spending people can skip. Cultural obligation to give gifts, wear new clothes, and serve elaborate meals is so strong that people go into debt to fulfill it. The festival embedded itself so deeply that economic pressure to spend is mandatory for over 1 billion people. But while Chinese consumers spend trillions inside China, something even more remarkable happens outside the country. Chinese tourists are about to spread this wealth across the entire globe. The global economic shockwave. Chinese New Year doesn't stay in China. When the holiday begins, millions of tourists flood outward, carrying spending power so massive that entire national economies plan their year around capturing it. And what happens next proves this ancient festival controls economic outcomes thousands of miles from Beijing. 7 million Chinese tourists traveled internationally during Spring Festival before the pandemic. These aren't budget travelers, they're the highest spending tourists on the planet, dropping over $5,000 per trip. That's triple what Americans spend. 7 million times $5,000 equals $35 billion injected into foreign economies in 2 weeks. Thailand gets this better than anywhere. 1 million Chinese tourists visited during Spring Festival in 2019, spending nearly $500 million in 1 week. Bangkok malls hire Mandarin-speaking staff, hang red lanterns, offer special discounts. Hotels hit 100% occupancy. That single week represents 15 to 20% of Thailand's entire annual tourism revenue. A bad Chinese New Year tanks their projections for the year. The Thai government monitors these travel trends like Wall Street watches the Federal Reserve. Japan sees the same explosion. Chinese tourists buy Japanese electronics, cosmetics, and luxury goods in such volume they invented the term bakugai, explosive buying. Department stores in Tokyo multiply sales during the holiday. In 2019, Chinese tourists spent $3 billion in Japan during 1 week. When COVID shut this down, hundreds of stores couldn't survive. Europe joins the gold rush. Paris, Milan, London compete desperately because Chinese shoppers drop tens of thousands of euros on luxury goods. In 2019, Chinese tourists bought 1/3 of all global luxury purchases. A massive chunk happens during New Year when people buy family gifts and prove their success abroad. Louis Vuitton, Gucci, Hermes plan quarterly revenue around Chinese New Year shopping. They release special red-colored items, zodiac-themed accessories, packaging for Chinese preferences. This isn't cultural sensitivity. Chinese New Year accounts for 20 to 30% of their Q1 revenue. Miss this window and your year's performance suffers. Cities fight for these tourists. Singapore decorates downtown and runs festivals. Dubai advertises with Mandarin billboards. Sydney hosts massive celebrations. Even the Maldives markets itself as a New Year destination because capturing even a fraction of outbound tourists transforms their numbers. Countries offer visa-free entry during the period. Airlines add direct flights timed for the rush. Tourism boards spend millions on Mandarin marketing campaigns. Australia ran entire campaigns promoting itself as the perfect getaway not for cultural reasons, but chasing billions in spending. The dependency became obvious during COVID. When China locked down and travel stopped, Thailand's tourism collapsed 83%. Japanese retailers went bankrupt. European luxury brands saw double-digit declines. Hotels with Chinese language services sat empty. The global tourism industry learned they'd built business models around one event, and when it vanished, revenue vanished. Now, post-pandemic, countries scramble harder to capture market share. Chinese New Year is a 2-week window when China stops, the world waits. Here's where the ancient festival reveals its true power over the modern global economy. When Chinese New Year begins, the world's largest manufacturing engine doesn't slow down. It stops completely. And what happens next exposes just how dependent the entire planet has become on China's production capacity. China manufactures 28% of all goods produced globally. Your smartphone, your laptop, your clothes, your furniture, your car parts, there's a nearly 3 in 10 chance they came from a Chinese factory. And during Chinese New Year, those factories shut down for 2 to 3 weeks minimum. Not reduced capacity, not limited operations, complete shutdown. The workers who run these factories are the same people making those 3 billion trips home for reunion dinners. When they leave, production stops. The timing makes this even more brutal. Chinese New Year falls in late January or early February, right when Western companies are ramping up production for spring product launches and restocking after the holiday shopping season. It's the worst possible time for a manufacturing freeze, and it happens with absolute predictability every single year. Yet somehow, it still catches companies off guard. Let's talk about what actually stops. Electronics manufacturing in Shenzhen, the city that makes more phones, tablets, and computers than anywhere else on Earth, goes dark. Automotive parts production halts. Textile factories in Guangdong that supply global fashion brands close their doors. The massive container ports in Shanghai, Ningbo, and Shenzhen slow to a fraction of normal capacity as dock workers head home. Ships sit waiting offshore with nowhere to unload because the staff needed to process cargo are celebrating with their families. the supply chain freeze ripples outward in waves. A Western electronics company waiting for components from China suddenly faces a 3-week delay they can't avoid. That delay pushes back their product launch. Their competitors face the same problem, so everyone's timeline shifts. Assembly plants in other countries that depend on Chinese parts run out of inventory and have to pause their own production. The shutdown in China creates shutdowns everywhere else. Shipping costs spike before and after the holiday. Companies desperate to avoid the shutdown pay premium rates to rush orders out of China in December and January. Container rates can double or triple during this period because everyone's fighting for the same limited shipping capacity before factories close. Then, after the holiday, there's a mad scramble to restart, and shipping rates spike again as factories try to fulfill the backlog of orders that built up during the shutdown. The scale of this disruption is staggering. Billions of dollars in goods sit in limbo. Production schedules across the entire global economy shift to accommodate China's holiday. Western retailers who didn't stockpile enough inventory before the shutdown face empty shelves. Fashion brands miss seasonal launch windows. Tech companies delay product releases. Automotive manufacturers run short on parts and have to slow assembly lines. And here's the thing that makes this so economically powerful: there's no alternative. You can't just shift production to another country for 3 weeks. The manufacturing infrastructure, the skilled workforce, the supply chain integration that China has built over decades doesn't exist anywhere else at this scale. Companies are stuck. They have to plan around Chinese New Year whether they like it or not. The ancient lunar calendar now dictates global production schedules because there's no way around China's manufacturing dominance. COVID exposed just how fragile this dependency really is. When Chinese factories shut down in early 2020, not for a holiday but for a pandemic lockdown, global supply chains collapsed. Suddenly, everyone realized that the entire world economy runs on parts and products made in China, and when China stops, everything stops. The Chinese New Year shutdown is a preview of that vulnerability, happening predictably every single year, and the world has simply accepted it as the cost of doing business. But what's remarkable is that this vulnerability doesn't weaken China's position, it reinforces it. Every year, companies talk about diversifying their supply chains, reducing dependency on Chinese manufacturing, building production capacity elsewhere. And every year, they come back to China because nobody else can match the scale, the speed, or the cost. So they learn to work around Chinese New Year. They stockpile inventory. They adjust timelines. They accept the disruption because the alternative, not using Chinese manufacturing at all, is economically impossible. The workers return after the holiday, factories restart, ports resume normal operations, and the global supply chain lurches back to life. But the restart isn't smooth. Quality control issues pop up as factories rush to clear backlogs. Shipping delays compound as everyone tries to move goods simultaneously. It takes weeks for the system to return to normal flow, which means the impact of Chinese New Year stretches well into March. Economists and supply chain analysts watch the restart closely because it tells them how strong the Chinese economy really is. How quickly do workers return? Are factories struggling to find labor? What's the backlog looking like? The answers to these questions predict manufacturing output, export volumes, and economic growth for the entire quarter. A slow restart signals economic trouble. A fast restart means China's economy is healthy and demand is strong. What started 4,000 years ago as villagers banging drums to scare away a mythical monster has become the single most powerful economic event on the global calendar. Chinese New Year isn't just a cultural celebration anymore. It's the moment when 1.4 billion people force the entire planet to acknowledge that the world economy runs on their terms, on their timeline, according to their traditions. The lunar calendar determines when factories shut down across Asia, when shipping rates spike globally, when product launches get delayed in Silicon Valley, when luxury brands hit revenue targets in Paris. An ancient festival celebrating family reunion and good fortune now resets how capitalism itself functions. And every January or February, without fail, the world holds its breath and waits for China to finish celebrating before business can resume. That's not just economic influence, that's economic control. And it happens because 1.4 billion people decided that some traditions are more important than keeping the global economy running smoothly. 4,000 years later, the festival that survived dynasties, wars, and revolutions has conquered something far more powerful. It's conquered the modern world's assumption that commerce never stops. Chinese New Year proves that when culture and economics collide, culture wins, and the rest of the world just has to deal with it.